Good morning, class. Today we are working on Unit 2, Lesson 6 homework, and it is page 37 in your workbooks. And we are talking about subtracting whole numbers and decimal numbers today. When we complete multi-digit subtraction problems, we often have to ungroup place by place. And an example of that would just be something like 4,000 minus 164. And what I mean by ungroup place by place is we go to the ones place and you cannot take 4 away from 0. So the 0 becomes a 10. And then we have to work our way back. The 0 in this, you cannot take 6 away from 0. So we borrowed 1 from this. It becomes a 9. This 0 becomes a 9. And the 4 becomes a 3. And then you can complete your subtraction problem. And that's all I mean when I say ungroup place by place. And then you would just 10 minus 4 is 6, 9 minus 6 is 3, 9 minus 1 is 8, and 3 minus nothing is 3. And so that's just a normal subtraction problem that you've been doing since 3rd grade. Now, when we do decimal subtraction, whole numbers, we are going to run into similar problems, but there's going to be a decimal. So you might run into a problem that looks something like this. 6 minus 1.56. And I tell students, just like I have in the past 5 lessons, if it's addition or subtraction, just bring your decimal down. You can just move it down right away. Now here is a situation where we know 6 is a whole number, so a whole number is automatically followed by a decimal, and then you can fill in above the numbers below with zeros. And then here's where we're going to have to ungroup like we did in the last practice problem. Okay, the 0 is going to become a 10. This 0, we're going to borrow from it. It's going to become a 9, and the 6 is going to become a 5. And our answer is going to be 10 minus 6 equals 4, 9 minus 5 equals 4, and 5 minus 1 equals 4. So it's 4 and 44 hundredths, and you can see you already brought your decimal down, so you're good to go. We can do another example just as I practice for you, and we could have 8 and 24 hundredths minus 3 and 57 hundredths. And this is another one where you're going to have to ungroup. So we cannot take 7 from 4 because 7 is larger than 4. So 4 becomes a 14. We borrow from the 2, it becomes a 1. Okay. 5, we cannot take 5 away from 1 because it's larger, so the 1 becomes an 11 and the 8 becomes a 7. So 14 minus 7 is, let's go ahead and do our decimal first. I like to bring that down right away all the time. 14 minus 7 is 7, 11 minus 5 is 6, and 7 minus 3 is 4. So our answer is 4 and 67 hundredths. So these are just quick and easy practice problems, and the biggest thing that I will keep telling you as you work on subtraction problems and addition problems with decimals is making sure you line your numbers up neatly. I will tell you over and over again, when kids struggle, a large chunk of the time it's because they're not lining their numbers or their decimal up. I'm going to go ahead and erase this, and we can look at some of what we have to do for our activity today. And you have on numbers 1 through 6, you have some subtraction problems, and some of them have a decimal and some of them don't. And the ones without a decimal we practiced in our pre-fractions unit, foundations unit quite a bit. So I'm actually going to go ahead and we're going to move to number 4. You can do 1 through 3 on your own, but let's do number 4. As an example, I want to do one that has a decimal in it as your example up here. Number 4 reads 720 and 95 hundredths minus 286 and 4 tenths. And we can subtract here. Well, if we have a blank here, we know that that's just like looking at a 0. You don't even have to write the 0, but we know it's just like looking at a 0. 5 minus 0 is 5. 9 minus 4 is 5. Bring down my decimal. Okay, 0 minus 6, well, we can't do that because 6 is larger than 0, so here we need to borrow. The 0 becomes a 10, the 2 becomes a 1, and then we know that we can't take 8 from 1, so this is going to become a 6, and this is going to become an 11. 10 minus 6 is equal to 4, 11 minus 8 is equal to 3, and 6 minus 2 is equal to 4. So the answer for number 4 is 434 and 55 hundredths. Now we're going to look at number 5, and it's really, again, all about lining your numbers up. And so number 5 reads 18,652 minus 4 and 31 hundredths. 4.31, or 4 and 31 hundredths. And you can see that because 18,652 is a whole number, we know that a whole number is immediately followed by our decimal point. So you can go ahead and put a decimal point in there. And we have 2 spots because the bottom number is hundredths, so we need to add in zeros into those 2 places. And here we're going to have to again ungroup. And we can borrow all the way over from the 5 in this point. If you want to borrow from 5, it's going to become a 4. The 2 is going to become a 1, and then when we add to it, it becomes an 11. The 0 becomes a 9, and this becomes a 10. 10 minus 1 is equal to 9. 9 minus 3 is equal to 6. Bring down my decimal. 11 minus 4 is equal to 7, and 4 minus nothing is 4. 6 minus nothing is 6. 8 minus nothing is 8, and 1 minus nothing is 1. So we have 18,647 and 69 hundredths. I'd like you to complete on the top numbers 1, 2, 3, and 6 on your own. Please make sure that you use a space below each problem to show your work so that I can actually see, and then that way if there's an issue, I can help you figure out where things went wrong. All right, let's work on number 7 together. We've got 4 story problems today, and I want you to make sure that you use the space over here provided to show your work again, and make sure that you include labels with each one of your story problems, please. Ahmad had a piece of rope that was 7 14/100 meters long. He cut off 9/100 meter to practice making knots. What was the length of the rope after the cut? Well, we want to know how much was left over, right? After he made the cut, we want to know what was left. So we know that this is going to be a subtraction problem. And so we're going to take our 7 14/100 and we're going to subtract that cut that he made, and it is 9/100 of a meter he cut off. And we're going to subtract. Well, we're going to need to ungroup here because we cannot take 9 away from 4. So the 4 becomes a 14. The 1 becomes a 0. 14 minus 9 is equal to 5. 0 minus 0 is equal to 0. I'm going to bring down my decimal. And 7 minus nothing is 7. So he's left with a piece of rope that is 7 5/100, and we need to say meters long. So you can write 7 5/100 m, or you can write out the word meter as well. We can look at number 8. I'm going to read it to you just so that you can identify what it's asking again. Natasha has a large collection of books. The thickest book measures 4 9/10 centimeters. The thinnest book measures 1 8/10 centimeters. What is the difference in thickness of those 2 books? Well, your key word here is the word difference. Okay, so that's telling you again, you're going to need to subtract. So this is going to be a subtraction problem for you, and you're going to need to make sure that you line up your decimals and line up your numbers. Make sure it's nice and neat, and you show your work. I'm going to leave you to do number 9 on your own, and I'm going to work through number 10 with you. Number 10 says, tarantulas are one of the largest spiders on earth. A tarantula can grow to be about 6 8/10 centimeters long. A spitting spider can grow to be about 9/10 of a centimeter long. About how much longer are the largest tarantulas than the largest spitting spiders? So this is that same kind of idea again, how much longer? So we need to subtract again. And so we have 6 8/10. That's the length of the tarantula. And we need to subtract then the length of the spitting spider, which is 9/10. And we're going to go ahead and subtract, and we're going to need to ungroup here. So we have to ungroup. When I was younger, we called it borrowing. And 18 minus 9 is equal to 9. Bring down my decimal. and 5 minus nothing is 5. So the difference between the two is 5.9 centimeters. And you can write cm, okay? Or you can actually write out the word centimeters if you choose to. So tarantulas are about 5.9 centimeters longer than spitting spiders. That problem to me could give me nightmares. All right, kiddos, go ahead and work on problems 1, 2, 3, 6, 8, and 9 on your own. When you've completed them, please make sure you take a picture of your work, attach it to the assignment, and turn it in on Teams. Thank you.